Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Maria. I work here at HomeGauge in the support area, and today we'll be going through our webinar on HomeGauge basics. So this is a really great webinar for those of you that are brand new to our software, or those of you that might have been with us for a while but just need a little bit of a refresher. This is going to be focusing mainly on the software itself, on building a report, and starting from the very beginning. So with me today, I also have Matt, who works in support with us. He's going to be answering any questions that you have during this webinar. If you'll notice off to the side in your webinar screen, there is a questions tab where you can feel free to chat and ask any questions that you have throughout the webinar. If there are any particular questions that we feel like might be helpful for the entire group, we will stop throughout the webinar to pause and answer questions during that period as well. Over in that toolbar, you will also notice that there is a handout that I've uploaded, and that handout has lots of helpful links that are related to today's webinar. So some of these topics we'll just be briefly going over today, but a lot of those links will go a little bit more in depth into a little bit more advanced areas and some specific articles and videos that we just wanted to point out. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to look at in the software are the toolbars that we have at the very top of the screen here. And if you've used HomeGauge before, you might be pretty familiar with these, but we do have two different toolbars up here. The one that starts at this very left-hand corner, these are the main toolbar functions for the software. And then this second half right here that starts with the uppercase T, this is going to be your template toolbar. So just quickly running through this list, we'll always go over this a little bit more as we get into the report. But just to start off with, these are going to be for functions like creating a new report, opening a report that you've already started on in the software, saving a report, copying and pasting anything throughout the report. You also have your print icon, your upload icon, your back and next button, which are related to this drop-down menu, and this is where you can find your unanswered items. If you have flagged anything in the software, you can come here and go through that list. You can also quickly edit all of your photos. We do have a help button, and if you click on that, that will bring up a window that has a prompt where you can start to ask some questions. And let me bring this over here. So you can kind of look at our Getting Started guide that's on here and ask questions. We do also have a support center, and I would highly recommend looking at that. And the address is just HomeGauge support. And for that, we have lots of different articles that are on there. You can search by topic. We also will post all of our webinars and videos on there too. And then moving along to this portion of the toolbar right here, these are all related to template changes. So the great thing about our software is that you can really take any of the templates that we have and start to create your own just based off of those. So these functions are mainly going to be related to making larger permanent template changes, and we'll go over some of those. Over to the right, we have our picture panel right here. You'll see right now I have that set to just my pictures. And this is where you can browse for pictures that are on your computer or on your camera or another device that you might have plugged in to your computer. The second tab that we have here is the Drawings folder. This looks very similar to that Pictures tab, but our software actually comes with lots of different images and drawings that you can put into your reports. And I'll quickly show you those that just by clicking on this folder here, this will direct you to that Drawings folder. And then you can see how we've organized all of these, and these are based around how the components in the template are organized as well, so they'll match up that way. But you always have these for reference, and you can load any of these into the software and bring these into your report. And we'll go over some of these functions a little bit more in depth once we start playing around with some pictures in the software. This third tab here is your contacts list. Right now you can see I have it selected to show all, so this is showing me a glimpse of my customers and my realtors all grouped together. You can slim that down a little bit by either clicking on the business person right here, which represents your realtors, or the little blue person here, which is your customers. So if you want to just look at one of those, you can make that selection. You can also add a new contact from here. And we'll show you how to do this. We're actually going to go in today and build our report. And one of the things that we'll need to do is to add a new realtor. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second here. The last tab that we have is CYA, and this is to check your answers. So you'll notice that there's nothing in here quite yet, and this does not really fill out until we've selected a template, but once we've done that, it'll kind of guide you through creating your report. So if you are brand new to inspecting, or you just want to make sure that you've answered everything to the best of your ability, this is always a great place to look, just to make sure you've got your information in there. Okay, so for right now, I'll go ahead and move this back to pictures. But while we're here, just keep in mind you can adjust any of these areas that we have, and then kind of have that be your default setting. Right now, I've also widened this area here so it's always showing, but you can click on this little pin over here if you want to collapse that and have it only pop up when you hover your mouse over it. You can do that, and that'll give you some more space. And that same feature will exist on this side as well. So right now, this is just showing quickly just our customer information, the report information, the miscellaneous section, and where we would go to select our template. And you can do that same thing and pin this item down if you don't want it to show all the time, or click on it again and then pin it back. Okay, so while we're here, I will want to just mention that today's webinar is mostly going to be focused around doing everything from the software. I have included a link in that handout that goes over some ways to use our appointments feature. That is our recommended way and the ideal way to go about starting your reports. And what I mean by that is that we have an appointment manager that's on your dashboard, and you can go ahead and create your appointment and schedule everything and start your report that way. So that webinar will give you some more information if you're interested in using that scheduler. But for today, we're just going to focus just on the very basic components of just building the report in the software. So for that, if you'll just follow along with me, I'm just going to go straight down this list. Feel free to ask any questions that come up, and we can always go over those. So the first item that I'm going to click on is customer right here. And by clicking on customer, this is where I'm just going to start to collect my information. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in some information here. Oops, need to spell customer, right? There we go. So the basic information that you'll need to create an account for your customer and for your realtor is their first and last name, as well as their email address. So any additional information that you have is going to be great, but it's not required. So right now I've just put in just their first and last name. If you want to include a title for that, you can as well. Any phone numbers, I'll go ahead and put in our office number here. And then here is where we'll put in their email address. Now, the way that our software works, each customer account and realtor account is going to be tied to one email address. So we don't allow them to have separate accounts with the same email address, so just keep that in mind as well. So for this one, I'm just going to put in just something completely fake, just so we can create a new account for this person. Okay, so I've got in my customer's information, I've got in their email address. You'll see that we have a spot right here for their username, and right now it's not even letting me click on that. So in order to create the username for them, all you have to do is click this button here to create their username. And we always suggest that you leave this part blank. You do have an option where you could come in now and go ahead and create their account name. It's not normally necessary. Our system's going to automatically make one up for them that's going to be based just on their first and last name. And we do suggest leaving this blank just in case if they already have an account with us, maybe they've had a home inspection by a different inspector that used our software, they're probably already in our system. So we'll just go ahead and leave this blank. Okay, and then you'll see here that it went ahead and just created that new account for me and it added it to the report. So now when I go back, this is going to be my customer's username right here. Down here, you can also add in their current address or their billing address if that's different than the property address. Up at the top, if you do have additional customers, it's pretty easy to add a new one. You can just click on where it says Add Customer. It's going to give you a different tab up here. You can also copy information from one tab to another. If it's the same address and the same basic information, you can just copy and paste that into a different tab. If you wanted to delete this one, let's say, I don't want to add this second customer, I could come in here and just delete it. One thing to mention quickly is a lot of reports that you're doing are probably going to be for a husband and wife. We do recommend that you create separate user accounts for them. Just in case, if something does happen farther down the line, we don't want, both of their information to be tied together with one account. Being in support, we do sometimes get those phone calls, from couples that have, unfortunately split up, and then the other person is able to view their information. So we always recommend, even if it is a husband and wife, any couples that you work with, go ahead and create a separate account for each of them. That'll give them each their own username and their own way to log in to get their report. Okay, so we're going to keep moving down, and next we're going to go to the report information. And the first thing that we have here is a spot for the report ID. Your report ID is how you label each of the reports that are in your software. If I were to just leave this completely blank right now, the software is just going to automatically start numbering that for me, just starting at 1 and continuing on. That's generally not recommended because it might make it kind of tricky to find older reports when you start going back and looking at your files. It's going to be a little bit hard to tell which one is which. So the recommendation that we have for the report ID is to normally do some type of combination between the report address and the date, or the date of the inspection and the customer's name. Whatever system that you want to start using that's based around that information is really going to be helpful later on. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just label this one. We'll call this report 200 Test Avenue. And you see it's already got my date selected just by entering in today's information. It already has that. So we'll leave that just as it is. You do have an option of putting in the start and stop time of that inspection. So let's go ahead and say this is going to be let's say it was for 9 o'clock today. And then you could go ahead and put in your end time. Okay, and then this is going to be the information about the property that we're going to inspect. So we could type in this information. If it happens to be the same as that address that we just put in for the customer, we can click this button here and that'll just bring over that information. But for right now, we'll go ahead and put this in here. And you'll see down here that it does start to remember cities and states that you've inspected, areas that you've gone to before, so that starts to be really helpful later. Okay, there is a spot down here for the MLS number if you happen to have that. None of this is really required on here, but the more information that you have, the better it's going to be. This spot right here is where we add in our realtor's information, and you'll see this looks a little bit different than how we added in the customer information. We don't really have those same fields to add it in directly from here. So the realtor, we actually have to add them into our contacts list, and then we can bring them into this report. So remember, our contacts list is right over here on the right side. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then to add them, there's a little icon of a person with a plus sign. And you can always hover over all of our icons in the software, and they'll kind of give you a little snapshot of what that icon does. So we'll go ahead and add them. And REP, that just stands for rep or the realtor. So we're going to select that one and click on OK. And just like before, we do require that you have their name and at least their email address. That's going to create the account for them. Okay, so I've got their information in. Let's say my company, we'll say HomeGauge. Any information that you have, you can continue to put that in. Then we're going to go to the next tab up here to create their username. And I'm going to use one that I know I already have just to show you what that looks like. Because if they're already in our system, it'll just link up with that same information. So just like before, we're going to leave this username box blank and just click on the button to create it. leave it blank. And this message is a little bit different. This is saying that they already have an account with us, so it just added that existing account. So we'll say okay to that. There are some more fields over here to the right as well. If you have their address information or any notes that you want to keep on that person, you can put those in there as well. So I'll go ahead and click on OK. That's going to add them to this list here. If I wanted to look just at my realtors, I could just trim that down a little bit. So now I want to go ahead and add this realtor to my report. So I'm going to select them and then use this button to add them from the list, and that just brings them over. The next section that we're going to go into is going to be the miscellaneous section and then starting our template. But before we do that, I'm going to take a short break just to see if we have any questions so far before we go into those topics, because they're a little bit more in depth. Okay, it seems like everybody's doing great so far, so we're just going to keep moving down this list. So right now I've clicked on the miscellaneous item right here, and you'll see that by clicking on that, we have several different categories going across the top. The first one that it's set to go to is the attachments page. And like I was saying at the beginning, if you are using our appointment manager and starting everything that way, you're not really going to need this information too much. This is mainly to attach an agreement to the report. And if you're doing that online through the dashboard, you have already done that portion, so you might not have to really worry about this page too much on here. If you did have additional attachments that you wanted to add to this report, you can add them directly from here. So if maybe you have like a welcome letter that you wanted to include, or any type of like safety information or other PDF documents, you can add those to your report. All you would need to do is click on the plus sign, and that's going to bring up your File Explorer, and you can just direct it to where you have that PDF document. So I could come in here and let's go to our flash drive, and we'll just go ahead and add that handout that we've got today. You do have to put in a short description, and then we just click on OK, and that will add it to this list here. The next tab that we have going across the top is the invoice page. And just like before, if you're using appointments, don't stress out too much about this part, because the way that you build your invoice is going to be a little bit different. If you are looking to use the invoice system that is in the software, you will already have some of these default items in here. So HomeGauge just by itself will have some of these services and pricing already in here. So of course, they might not match up with your area. So we can go in and edit this information. So we can click on any of these service names, and let's say, in your particular area, you actually charge a little bit more for this square footage. So we would just click on this item here, and then we're going to use this little wrench right here. Whenever you see a wrench anywhere in the software, that just stands for edit. So we'll click on that. And right from here, you can either change the name of the service if you want to call it something different, and then we can go ahead and change the price. So let's go ahead and change that to $400. You can also choose to add tax and put in your tax rate if you would like to include that. And then I'll go ahead and click on OK. And you'll see that that just made that change right here. You can also adjust the order of a lot of these items. If you always want your most used services to be at the very top, you can select them. So we could take, let's say I'm always doing, super large properties like these two. Or actually, let's just do one. I could highlight this item and then use my arrows over here just to move that up to the top of the list. So that way you don't have to always search through, a really long list if you have lots of services that you're adding in. So just keep in mind, like most things in our software, everything is very customizable. So if you ever feel like there's something that you would like to change, more often than not, it probably is possible. So just always feel free to ask. And you'll see in this list as well, we do have some additional services. So things like discounts that you might offer, or different testing that you do, like radon testing or mold testing. You can add in those services as well. And to add in a new service, we're going to come over here to the right and click on the plus sign. So we'll go ahead and add in, let's do a military discount. Okay, and let's say for that, we'll take off $60 for that, and then add that to the list as well. So you can really come in here and customize everything for how you'd like it to fit your invoicing. Down here at the bottom, we do have some other notes just to kind of pay attention to. We do have a payment method drop down that you can look at. So if you're still awaiting payment, or if you've already received it, you can put in some notes down here. So let's say that they paid, or they're going to pay at closing, and the payment status, we've got some choices here. Let's say we're still awaiting that closing period. And then you could also come in here and either use some of our notes that we have in here. Like, let's say we need to remember to call the agent. You could use some of our pre-written notes that are in here, or you can just type straight in there and put your own. So pretty simple to use, but a great tool that we have that's in the software, and that's how to make your invoices from the software. The next tab that we have over here is the inspector info. And the software is actually trying to help me out right now. So it's saying, I noticed that you made some changes to that list of services. Do you want to go ahead and save them? In this case, I'm going to say yes. And your invoice, that's going to be saved for each report that you do. There's just kind of one overall invoice that you have in the software. So anytime you move away from that, it should go ahead and prompt you to save that. This next tab that we're on right here is the inspector info. This is a great place where you can put in any comments that you have. It could be, things mainly for yourself that you just need to keep in mind in getting ready for this inspection. We also have some options here if you want to note the lead source that it came from. If maybe that came from a previous customer, you could list that. You can also track the mileage that you drove for that particular report for tax purposes. So let's say that this one altogether, we drove 25 miles. You can also track the directions. So if you type straight in here, that's kind of just your own notes for getting to that property. But if you click on map right here, it gives you some different choices, whichever map service you want to use. But this will pull from your report information. So if you have put in the report information already and you've got that address in there, you can just select these to pull up a map, and that'll open up in a different window. The next tab that we have over here is for radon testing. This is only if you are using a company called AirCheck to do your radon testing, and they are another local company to us here in Asheville. So if you're going to be using any of their kits, or if you're interested about getting more information, it gives you some of their contact information on here, as well as the steps with how their services work. So just something to point out. We're not going to go too much into this right now, but if you do have some questions, feel free to put those in and we can definitely get you in touch with them. And then the last tab that we have over here is for forms. And the HomeGauge software automatically comes with particular forms already included in the software. And most of those are going to be forms like we do have like a pretty simple radon form in there, as well as specific ones for Florida, like wind mitigations and roof certification forms. We do also have additional forms that might require a purchase. Most of those are going to be either state-specific forms or pest forms, like your NPMA form. So if you do have any questions, or if you're needing any of those, feel free to either type that in and we can answer that, or feel free to call us at any time and we can go over some of that. So you'll see on here I have a couple different forms on here. Yours might look a little bit different, just depending on if you've purchased any of these or not. So you would go ahead and just select whichever form you want to use, and let's just go ahead and click the radon one, and then click on OK. And that will just open up that form. These are pretty easy to use. You can go ahead and just type directly into any of these boxes on here. You will also notice that some of these are kind of already filled out. So whenever you see something like this that has the asterisks going around the front and the end of that field, those are going to automatically fill in for you. So just keep in mind whenever you see those, it's going to just put in that information. You won't have to worry about typing that in. So in this case, it would be for things like the company name, your contact information, your client's name, all of that is just going to come in automatically for you. You also have some options up here. If you happen to have this handy with you at the job site and you have something like a Surface Pro or a tablet, you can have them just do their signature just right on here. They could come in and put in their great signature that hopefully looks better than that, and then click on OK. Or you can also come in here. If there's things that are always the same on these forms, we want to definitely save you some time. So you can type in those fields and have them ready to go, and then click this button here, and that's going to set that as your default form. So if there's some other fields, that we don't have merged fields for, maybe things like license information or your company information, you can go ahead and type that in, and then just click this button here, and it's going to remember that for the next time that you use that form. Okay, so we'll take another quick little break here before we start going into the template. I think we do have a few questions in here, so we'll just take a look at those. Okay, Ian, we're just taking a look at your question here. So it sounds like you're kind of doing larger inspections, and there's not necessarily like one particular customer on that. So in instances like that, I have heard of people putting like the main point person or contact person and creating an account for them, if that would work. So that's one option that you have. You can also put in the information and just put in the customer's first and last name and not create the username for them. And you can still go ahead and upload it or print it out that way. But that might make your report delivery look a little bit different. So I'm curious to kind of see if you're looking to send that out as like a PDF or an HTML, because that might kind of affect the answer as well. Okay, I think that might be all that we have for right now. Ian, if you do have some more questions as kind of like a follow-up to that, feel free to type in anything if I haven't completely answered that, or if you have some more questions about it, because we do have Matt signed in and he'll be able to type that back to you. But for right now, we'll go ahead and select a template and kind of go from there, just so we can see what choices we have now. So we've kind of just gone over some of the basics of the report, but we haven't really put in any specific report information yet. So in order to do that, we're going to come down this list and choose our last option here, which is to select a report template. And you'll see that once we click on this, we have several different options. The one that it is selected on right now is the Systems Residential. That's actually our most popular template. That's what most people tend to go with. And then just like before, you can always come in here and customize these as well. So it might be a good one to get started with, and then you can kind of make your own copy from there and really make that your own custom template. And we've got a link in there as well to a past webinar that we did that goes over customizing your template. So if you've got some more questions about that, that's going to be a great video for you to look at. So for right now, I'm just going to start with this one, and we'll open up this template. And you'll see that now that I've added my template to this report, I've actually got a new section on here that says General Info. And under General Info, this is going to be the information that kind of starts your report. So over here to the right, this is an area where you can add in your cover picture. And we'll go over adding pictures in just a little bit, but just keep in mind that if you're looking for the place to put in your introduction picture, the picture of the house or maybe a short video of the area, this is going to be the place that you want to add that to. You also have some information about the report and different comments and definitions that we have in here. So this corresponds to this particular template and is just telling your customers, what exactly do you mean by inspected or not inspected or repair replace, just giving them some more information about the terminology that you might be using in the report. You can also customize this section as well. So if you have different column headers or different sections in your report, you can always go in and change that. And then down below, we have some information about the property as well. So we've got things like in attendance and type of building and the age of the home, and things about the condition of the weather. And all of these, you'll notice that if you click on these items, like if I click on in attendance, we've got all of our choices already loaded here on the right-hand side. So you can really just come in here and just highlight whichever one fits for that report, and then just continue down this list here. So I could go straight through to type of building. Let's say this was a single family 2-story. You'll see that some of these are automatically excluded right here. It's got a little red X next to it. That just means that for this particular template, that item is just not going to show up on the report. If it happens that you want to include that item again, you can always click on that X, and that will open up this option right here. So now we could go in here and say something about the style of the home. And you'll also notice that everything that I've answered so far is getting a little blue check mark right here. The blue check mark stands for your status. So this S column here, if you actually click on it, it kind of tells you that it doesn't really do anything by clicking on it, but it just reminds you that you've answered something. So as you start to fill out more information, you'll see a check mark, and sometimes they might look a little bit different. They might have an ABC under it, or some more information, and that just tells you things like you've answered this question, you've put in a picture, you've got your comment in there. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. We also have this column here, and F for this column stands for flagged. So if there's anything that you're unsure of and you want to make sure to come back to it later, you can go ahead and put a flag here. And this is just our little safety feature that just gives you some more information. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose not to show that, but you'll see that that's added a flag to this item. So now I can go ahead and continue on with my report, and then just remember to come back to those flagged items because I need to go back and put my answer in. And a quick way that you can go to these flagged items is up here at the very top. You'll see right now it says find unanswered. You could leave it as that and start just looking to see what you haven't answered, or you can change this and move it to find flagged, and then you would just do find first, and you'll see that it brought us back to the same place. But that's a great way of, just reminding yourself to go back to certain questions, things that, you wanted to follow up on. You can go ahead and put a flag there, and then just come back to it once you're done with the report. The next section that we're going to look at is our components list. And what I mean by components are all of these items right here. So this is kind of how the report is broken up. And if I actually click on where it says components, it's going to give me some more options here. So this is kind of like looking at the table of contents of your report. So this is the standard one that we have for this template. Just like before, you can definitely customize this as well. So if you don't want this to say roofing, you could always come into here and do a template change and make this say something else. So let's just say I want it to just say roof. I could highlight this item here, come up to my template toolbar, and remember my template toolbar, those all have an uppercase T just to remind me that it's not a report change, it's actually going to change my template going forward as well. And then I could click on Edit T. Let's say I want to adjust this and just say roof, I could do that. You also have some other options in here. These are a little bit more advanced, and they are in that link to the webinar on template customization. But these are for things like adding images to particular sections, or coming in here and adding different names for duplicate sections. Those are all options that you have too. So in this case, I've just gone ahead and changed that to say roof. And you'll see if you look over here, the Save T button has lit up. That's just reminding me, hey, you just made a template change. Do you want to save them? So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save T. And you also have some other options as well with this template toolbar. So you can come into any of these areas, like garage, for example. I could completely delete that from my template if it's something that I never come across. You can do that. Or you can use these up and down arrows and you can change the order as well. So if I wanted garage to be all the way at the bottom, I can move that down the list and then once again, click on Save T. You can also come in here and exclude items. So let's say instead of deleting garage, since I still want that to be in my template, I just don't want it to apply for this particular report. I can actually come to garage, and then if I go all the way across, there's a box that I can check off to exclude it. And you'll see that that just means that it's going to be grayed out of the template, so it's not showing up on here. And that also means that when you go to print or upload your report, that section is not going to be listed. So that's up to you. Just remember that if you exclude something, it's not going to show up at all on the report. There are some instances where you might want to check off maybe not present as opposed to excluding something. And that would just be for cases where you want it to still say that heading, but you just want to show that there wasn't anything present for that one. So just some other different choices that we have in here. You also have some options of doing more template changes, and that would be for things like excluding something by default. So the exclusion that we just made here, that's just for this particular report. But let's say I want my template to always just exclude garage. I could come into here and edit this item. And you'll see at the very bottom here, we have a box that we can check off to exclude this section by default. So that just means that every time I come into this template, it's going to automatically look like this. When I open it up, it's just automatically going to be excluded. And then it's up to me, if I want to include that or keep it excluded. So lots of different choices that you have. At the very beginning, you might not be making some of these choices and modifications to your template, but just something to always keep in the back of your mind as you start to do more and more reports. If you notice that this doesn't quite fit how you normally do your inspections or you'd like things to be different, just always feel free to give us a call or take a look at some of those videos because you will probably more than likely be able to make some of those changes, and that'll definitely speed up your report time and make things a lot easier for you. We'll go ahead and take another quick break before we start to go into these components a little bit further. So let's see if we have any questions. Okay, Ian, I just see the last part of your question here. Yes, so if you're doing mainly a PDF, that's pretty easy. You can actually just put in, if you want there to be customer information on there, you can put that in and not really need the email address. Because if you're going to be using a PDF, you can actually just save that to your computer, and then you can kind of pick and choose, the people that you want to email that to and send it as an attachment that way. So yeah, it sounds like that should work out great then. Okay, it looks like everybody's doing great so far. So the next part that we're going to go into are the inspection items in the report. So if I click on this new component that we just renamed roof, this is kind of where your report starts. So you'll see right now I'm on the tab that says inspection items. So under the same component of roof, I've got some different sections here. I've got roof coverings, flashing, skylights, and roof drainage systems. This is just how that particular component breaks up. So on here, you'll see we also have our column headers that relate to each of these items. And it also gives you the key right here, so you can kind of see what each of these stand for. So this is where you'd probably want to start marking things as inspected. Let's say I inspected the roof coverings. And actually, I noticed that something does need to be repaired, so I could click on that. Flashings, let's say I inspected that. Skylights, let's say not present. And this is kind of what I was referring to earlier, where you could either It's up to you. You could say not present. That's still going to show skylights on the report, but it's just going to show that there weren't any. Or you could actually come in here and exclude it. That'll make your report a little bit shorter, and it's not even going to show that item on there. So just up to you. And then let's say for this one, we inspected that, and that also needs some repair as well. So this is where you can go in and just make your choices at first. And then you'll see down below, this is our section where we can start to type in our comments. So your comments, we have a library that goes along with each of these items. So each of these items has its own separate local list, which is your list of comments that came with the software. So to access those, you're going to look down here and click on this first magic wand. And you'll see this is all of the comments that I have for roof coverings. So I could look through this list and let's see if I have something that kind of matches up. Let's say that I notice the tree limbs are in contact with the roof. So we could insert that one. And there you go. You don't even really have to type anything in. So that's one option that you have. You can use some of our comments that we have in the software. Another option that you have is you could type in your own comment. So let's come down here. Let's go to roof drainage systems. And I'm not a home inspector, guys, so I'm just going to put in just a really simple comment. I'm just going to say this is my comment. And let's just pretend this is a really great comment and I want to save it. Probably not so much for this one. But let's say, it's something that we use all the time and I just want to go ahead and save that to my library. So instead of coming to this first option here, I'm going to go to the second one that has a plus sign, and that just means that we're adding something to that library. So I'm going to click on that. The first thing that it's directing me to do is to put in a shortcut name for it. So I'll go ahead and put that in. And then you do have some more advanced options in here as well, so those will be in some of those links. But you can have a document automatically attached to this comment, or a picture as well. Or you could have this comment just automatically show up on all of your reports. So just some different things. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and put in this is my comment and save that to the library. It's going to ask me to put that into a category just so we can store it. So I'm going to come down here and let's look for roofing. And you'll see we've got some different options here. So roofing is the main category that we see. And then it does break down a little bit farther. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in roof coverings. And you'll see that Save T button has lit up again. That means I made a template change. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now I've got this comment in my report, but it's also in my template. So the next time you go back to your regular list of comments in the library, you'll see there's the comment that we just added in. So that's a great tool that you can take advantage of. Just as you're writing your reports, you can go ahead and just type it out one time and then have it saved to your library, and that'll definitely save you some time in the future. And just like before with our components list, keep in mind you can customize all of this. You're probably going to get really tired of me saying customize, but it's really the great part of our software. You can really come in here and change whatever you need to. So if these particular inspection items, don't really apply, or you have, some different wording that you use, feel free to highlight any of these items. You can either add a new one, and I'll just put this in as new inspection item. So you can see that'll add your new item to the list. You can also come in here and edit the items that we have, or completely delete them if you don't need them to show up on here. And just make sure every time you do something like that, especially at the very beginning, just be on the lookout for this Save T button. It's just a good reminder, whenever you're making a template change, after you're done, just make sure that that part is lit up, and that'll just kind of remind you that you probably did that correctly, and we just want to save it now. Something else to point out down here in your comment area, if I were to type in my great comment again, we do have some standard tools right here that you can use as well for things like putting something in bold, underlining, changing the color. So if you really want things to stand out or be set apart, you can really take advantage of a lot of these items here. You do also have a way of putting in a hyperlink. If you want it to go directly to a particular website, you can do that. And just a shorthand little tip here, we do have this eraser. If you start putting in something and you don't want to backspace everything, you can use that eraser to completely clear that out as well. Okay, it looks like Matt is doing a great job of answering some questions, so we're just going to move along right here. The next thing that we're going to look at is adding in pictures to the report. So these might be pictures that you're adding in from your digital camera. Maybe they're pictures that you already just have on your computer, or you might still have your device, like your phone, maybe that's plugged into your computer. So we want to start to move those into the report. So to do that, remember our picture panel is over here on the right side, so we're going to move that back to pictures here. And to get started, we're going to go ahead and click on this file folder icon. That's going to bring up your file explorer again. And you're just going to direct this to wherever you have those pictures. So in my case, I put those on my flash drive. And then I'm going to just select this folder here. And that's going to start to load all of your pictures on the right-hand side. These pictures are not in the report quite yet, but they're just available for us to pull from. So let's go back to that general info because I don't want any of you forgetting where we put in that cover picture, since that is my first picture here. Remember that your cover picture goes under general info. So to insert this picture, I could do this a couple different ways. I could either highlight it, and you'll see that it's been selected. It has a red line going around it. Then I could actually click on this green button here, the first plus sign. This is going to bring up our editor. Whenever you're adding in pictures to the report, this is normally going to show up first unless you've changed your settings and had it not go to the editor. But this has some handy tools in it as well. I'll show you some of these in just a second. We probably wouldn't use that too much for the cover picture. So we'll go ahead and just add this in. So that's one way that I could add in that cover picture. Another option that I have is a little bit easier, and what most people tend to do is just click and just drag. And you'll see I've already got that picture there. I still can add a couple more on top of it. There's not really a limit to that part. So I'm just going to click and drag. And then I actually have a video that I'm going to include. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and that'll add it in. And now you'll see under cover picture, I've got 2 out of 2. So here's my video that I just pulled in, and then there's my still cover picture right here. And a lot of people tend to do maybe 1 or 2 cover pictures, or maybe 1 and a short video clip. This clip you'll see is from one of our sample reports that we have on our website. And that was kind of just a quick little video just showing the customers what their area kind of looked like. So in this case, it was, some beautiful farmland and everything, and it was just, a short little video just showing them that area. Okay, so that's how you would add in your picture for your cover page. We'll go a little bit more in depth. Let's go back to roof here and start to add in some more pictures. And you'll notice if you look at our film strip now, it looks a little bit different. We can see that we've used these 2 pictures here, and they're kind of grayed out a little bit. So that's just a reminder just that you've already put them in the report. You can still use those same pictures and videos again if you'd like, but it's just kind of reminding you that they're already in here. This little green box that's on top of here is also telling us that this particular picture is in our photo locker. Any pictures that you put into your report will automatically be saved into your photo locker, and that's just another storage that we have kind of in your background files. It's in your documents folder. You'll have one for each of the reports that you make, so it's just another spot that we save the pictures to. If you don't really want to see the pictures that you've already used, you can change this. So if I want to hide these for now, I can come up here. You'll see right now I've got it set to the eye. That shows everything. If I want to hide the ones that I've used, I'll click on the eye with the line going through it. And that'll just make that list a little bit shorter. That way you can kind of quickly see how many pictures you have left and what you need to still add. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's add in another picture, but this time let's add in a couple of them at the same time. So for that, I'm going to just select my pictures. And I've got 2 choices here. I can do like before and just click on Insert Selected. And we'll click on this one first. It brings you to each picture just one at a time. This way you can go in and make any edits. And the type of edits that you can do in here are things like adding your arrows, or adding circles or lines or text onto your pictures. So I could click on, let's use the right arrow here. So I'm going to select that one and then just click on where I want that arrow to go. So that's just a nice way to highlight something that might be in your picture that you just want to draw their attention to. You can use arrows. We've got different directions that they point in. We've also got circles that you can use if you wanted to highlight something as well. There's also text, so if you wanted to add that, you would just click on text, click on the picture, and we could say, look here. This is kind of the standard size and color that we have in here, but you can change that as well. And then we've got our text that you can really kind of click and drag wherever you'd like. If you go a little bit crazy, sometimes when you're starting out, you might accidentally, put way too many arrows on here. You can come in here and move this back to select, and then click on each one and remove it. That's one way that you can get these off of here. If I wanted to completely just start over and take all of these edits off of here, there's actually a button for that down here that says Revert to Photo Locker. And it's going to ask you, are you sure this is going to take everything off of here? We'll say yes. And that'll just bring it back to the standard picture that we started with. Okay, and then we'll click on OK. And this is going to just take us through our next picture. So we'll quickly just do some edits, but mainly just want to get these in here. So now we've got our 3 pictures that are all under roof coverings. Let's say I want to add in a couple more, but I'm not really thinking that I need to make any edits to these pictures. I don't really want to highlight anything. So in this case, I'm going to select my pictures again. And I'm actually going to use this double plus sign here. That's just going to put the pictures in, but not have you go through the editing stage. So if it's something that you don't normally need, this is just a little bit quicker to do it that way. While we're over here, we do have some other tools that you might want to look at as well. So we do have this option here that will select all of your photos. It's going to highlight everything. So you could either do that, if you had an area that you wanted to put all of your pictures in, you could do that. And then we could click this to clear that selection here. And then we also have some options to add things to the photo locker. And just remember your photo locker is always going to be the pictures that are currently in your report. They're automatically going to go there. But if you have some additional pictures that you don't want to put into the report, but you still want to save them to your photo locker, you can do that just by clicking on them and clicking on this plus sign, and that'll put them into that photo locker. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a quick little break, again, just to see if we have any questions, and then we'll be right back. Okay, looks like everybody's still doing just fine, so we'll keep on moving through. Just remember, you can always put in a question whenever that pops up, and we can get to that in our next little break here. So the next thing that we're going to look at, we're still going to be under this roof category right here, but now we're going to move over to the next tab. So right now we're looking at our inspection items. Now we're going to move over to styles and materials. So this looks pretty similar to what we were looking at under general info. So it gives you your main item name right here, so roof covering, and then it gives you all of your choices over here on the right-hand side. So you could come in here and make your selection. You can, really choose as many as you need to, and then just come down to the next item and continue to do that same thing. So let's say that we viewed the roof covering from the ground, and we also walked on the roof. We could make those selections. Skylight, yes, skylight, we wanted to exclude that one from before. So we can do that same thing here and check that one off. And chimney, let's say that was rock. Some things that you might run into here, maybe we don't have the particular style and material that you're looking for on here. you can still add to this list as well. Just like we can add to the list over here of our items, you can also change the items that show up on the right-hand side. And to do that, you're going to click on the main category that it comes from. So we'll click on chimney. And then we're going to come up here to edit T. And you'll see there's that same list of all of these items that are showing up right here. So I could come in here. We've got our very familiar toolbar right here where we can add things, edit things, delete them, or move them up and down. So for this one, let's just say, NA, I don't even really want that on there. I'm going to just delete that. And let's add in a new one. So we're just going to call this new material, because if I try to think of one, it probably won't make sense. So we'll put that in there. And let's say I want this new material to be at the very top. So you could come in here and move that all the way up. And remember, that is a template change. So now we have this button that lit up right here. So we'll go ahead and save our template. And just like our other areas as well, you can permanently exclude something from your template as well. So if you want skylights to just automatically not show up on here, remember that's under Edit T. And you could check this right here to exclude that by default. So just as you start to do more and more reports, you might see some things that you just want to have automatically set up like that, and you can definitely do that. Our next section that we have over here is Overview. The Overview section you might not use too much. So if you're using one of our standard templates, it's already going to have this information in here. So each component has its introduction and footer, and these mainly are here to tell your customers and your realtors what you're going to be looking at. So it lets them have some more information about things that you're going to be looking for, or maybe things that you're not required to look at. So just some more information that you can put into here. These are kind of like our boilerplate templates, boilerplate introduction and footers that we have in here. You can change these as well if you want your template to always look a little bit different. And then down here, you notice that we do have another spot for pictures. These might be pictures that are just general pictures that you have that aren't really related to repair items or things that need to be fixed. You can always just add additional pictures right here. So let me clear out this selection here. And let's just add in this picture here. And something that I didn't point out earlier is the picture size. So just by default, when you're adding in pictures like we are, they're automatically going to be at this medium size right here. That's generally a good size to keep them at. If you are using our HTML report, where you upload this to your dashboard, when your customer logs in to view the report, or your realtor, they are going to be able to click on these images and expand them to make them larger. So we don't really need them to be very large in this report. Medium tends to be a pretty good size to leave them at. But in this case, this is a picture that's going in our overview section. You might want to make these ones a little bit smaller, and you can control those up here. So we could bump this one down a little bit more and have that set to small. Okay, I don't think we have too many questions so far, so I'm going to keep moving forward here. So the next part that we're going to go into is just straight down this list. We're going to go to Optional. And if we go to Optional, I'm actually going to click on where it says the header right here. And you'll see this looks very familiar. This is kind of what components looked like here. So these are items that we have set as optional, so they don't automatically show up in your template. But if you come across a property that has any of these things, you can always bring them in. So let's say, we've done this inspection and we notice that they had a swimming pool. We could actually come in here and just unexclude this item. And now that's going to open up so we can come in here and put in our comments. We could go ahead and mark things in the column headers right here. So that's a good way to kind of, just condense your template, but still have things available for you. And you can add to that optional list as well if there's some other things that you can think of that maybe we've left off. Remember, use your template toolbar right here. You can add those in or edit any of the ones that we already have in here. And then the last part that we actually have down here is our summary item. So under summary, our summary right now is showing us everything that was marked as repair replace. So if I come back up to roof, where I think we marked some things off, you'll see that this particular template, whenever you make a selection right here under Repair Replace, it automatically checks this off to go to the summary. So that means you're going to have the comment, the original comment in the main body of the report, and then it's also going to show up in the summary. So just a good way to make those deficiencies kind of stand out so your customer is aware of them. And you'll see if I were to uncheck this, it's going to take it out of the summary. So now going back, that's where I know where these ones came from. So we've got our summary items in here. And this is kind of just a general summary that we have. I have included another link if you're interested in setting up multiple summaries, maybe having a general summary and a maintenance summary. Or if you want to break it up a little bit farther, some people tend to do like an electrical summary and a plumbing summary. Those are all things that are possible. We have a great article that kind of walks you through doing that too. So in this case, I've just got my summary. This also has an introduction and a footer in here as well. This is just telling them, why these items might be in the summary, things that you were kind of looking for, to make sure that it fits that description of being something that needs to go in the summary. So you can also change some of the information in here as well. So under summary, I'm going to click on this one and then go to Edit T. You'll see I've just got the one summary right here. It's just the general summary. This is my abbreviation right here. You can also choose to have your summary comments show up in a different color. So this is a really good way of making them stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to change this one and just have all of my summary options show up in red. You could also come in here and set up an icon for this as well. And you can change it by clicking on that little gray box. It'll take you to a lot of our standard images that we have in here. So you can definitely use any of the ones that you see here. Or if you have other images, maybe from another program, or just somewhere else on your computer, you can kind of shape those and resize them a little bit and pull from there as well. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and use this one. Actually, let's use this smaller one here. And that's a template change as well. You see how that button has lit up again. So we'll go ahead and save that. So let's say we've kind of gone through our entire report. We filled out all of our components. We've got our summary in there. Now we're ready to actually send it out. And when we talk about sending out our report, we have two different options. You can either print it or you can upload it. And when we say upload, that means that we're uploading it to the dashboard. Your dashboard is where your reports are going to be stored online with our server, so we back those up for at least 5 years. And that's also how your customers have the ability to log in and view their report information. So let me just show you what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and click on the upload button right here. This message is just reminding me that, we haven't really answered everything. Are you sure you still want to continue? In this case, I'm going to say yes. If this was a real report, of course, you'd want to say no. And then you could actually come in here and change it to find unanswered. And then find first. And it's just going to take you through everything that you haven't answered. So just a nice little safety feature that we have in there. So after I click on upload, I have a couple different settings that I can look at. And these are the standard ones that should have already come with your software. Most people end up using an option that might be similar to this one here, which is the full report for upload. So if we want to see everything that's included in here, I can actually highlight this item and click on edit. And this tells me exactly what's included in the full report for upload. So that's going to be the cover page, the intro, the table of contents, the attachments page if there are any, the body of the report with the pictures, the summary. If there were estimates, it would do that as well, and it's going to show the pictures again in the summary and the invoice. So you can really come in here and adjust it. Sometimes it's helpful to have different print settings on here. So you could have one that's the full report, you could have one that's just the invoice or just the summary or just your attachments. If we come over here to this other tab, And this is a question that we get a lot is, how do I make this a PDF report? By default, most of these are going to be HTML, but then you can actually switch it to PDF if that's your preferred method of printing and sending out your reports. You can change that from here as well. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just have that one selected here. Before I get to the preview and actually send it out, I want to show you some other options that we have here. So especially if this is your first time that you go to print or upload, it's going to force you to look at this page for a second here. And this is just to show you some different formats that we have. And the main two that we're kind of choosing from is a grid format and then a narrative format. So a grid format is, of course, going to look like a grid. It's got the different checkboxes. That's kind of similar to how they looked in the report. So sometimes this is, pretty helpful for your customers to quickly see the markings that you made on the report. So that's one option that we have. And you'll see we've got a couple different grid versions as well, and that just kind of changes around the placement of your comments and your styles and everything. But if we keep going down this list a little bit, we also have a narrative version. The narrative is going to be a little bit more condensed, so you don't have those same boxes on here, but you still have your styles and materials. And then you actually have your comments right here to go along with your pictures. And you see how it just says inspected instead of actually having the checkboxes on there. And then we also have for each of these items, there are different colors that kind of correspond with each one. So just something to take a look at to kind of see, which one stands out to you and which one you want to kind of represent your business. You can really come in here and, make it however you need it to look. Once you've found one that you're happy with, you will want to check this box right here. And that's just going to save that as your default setting. So you don't have to come in here and make those selections every time. You can make them different for each report that you do. So depending on your client and, kind of, their preferred way of seeing the report, visually, however that's going to be best for them, you can always kind of pick and choose that. The next tab that we have up here is for your logo. So you see I've got just kind of my standard HomeGauge logo in here. If you have a logo that you're currently using for your business, feel free to send us a copy of that logo. We can actually go ahead and resize it for you, and then we'll email that back to you with the instructions on how to put that into your software right here. And this logo is going to appear on the cover page of your report, as well as areas like your invoice or your agreement. We can have those just preloaded in there for you. We also have some lines set aside for your signature and initials. So if you would like your signature to show up on your cover page, or if you're planning on using some of the forms that we have in the software, wherever there's a space that requires your signature, we can have that set up where it'll just automatically fill that in for you. So just like your logo, if you've got some of these things or you want to have them ready, just feel free to email that to us. Our email is support@homegauge.com. And we'll be happy to go ahead and get those formatted for you, and then we'll send them back to you with the instructions. The last tab that we have under here is miscellaneous. And you might not really need this area too much, but it's just got some more options for you. We're always about the options. So you could really come in here and change the headers and footers that show up on your pages. You can change any of these items that are related to places like your picture headings or your picture labels or the text that goes along with your styles and materials. You can kind of pick and choose different styles that you want those to show up in. You also have some options down here where you can choose to include page breaks if you would like. You can have it number itemized comments. You can have it center picture. So just a lot of little details that you might start to think about after you've done a couple of reports. Okay, so that's just a quick rundown of our print options here. So I'm going to just move forward and use this option right here. That's the full report for upload. And we're going to go ahead and upload this. But before we get there, we do try to help you out and have a print preview available. So let me pull this over because that came up on my other screen here. So this is a preview of the report that we're about to upload. So you'll see we've got our cover information here, we have our table of contents, and since we're using an HTML document, it's going to be very interactive. So you can click on any of these items and go straight to that area of the report. If we were to keep scrolling, we will see our summary information down here at the bottom. So there's our summary page. And remember, we chose to have our summary comments show up in a red text. So that's what we're seeing here. And then here's our invoice that we're billing them for. That's also got our logo on there. And all of the notes that we put in are going to be in that left corner. And then those attachments that we put on, since we added in our handout from today and our rate-on form, you'll see those listed as well. If you were to click on these, it'll just open up in another window so you can see those documents. So let's say, we're very proud of this report. We want to go ahead and send it out. We're going to go ahead and click on Upload. And then once we do that, it's going to ask us if we want to send out the notification emails. And this is something that we get asked a lot. We're going to go ahead and say yes, but keep in mind that by saying yes, that does not mean that we're actually sending them quite yet. This is just going to take us to the page where we can do so if we choose. And let me bring this page over here. Okay, so this is taking us to the location where we can go ahead and send out our notifications now. If you're seeing this page for the first time, or if you're not very familiar, this is your dashboard. So whenever you upload a report to send it out to your customers, this is where that report goes. I've also included a link in that handout that gives you a link to a video that we have on introducing you to the dashboard and seeing what options you have on here. So if you want some more information on that, definitely take a look there. But we can see that this is the report that we just did. It's got our report ID right here. There's our cover picture. And then down below, this is the actual document itself. We've got our customer and our realtor on here as well. So this is just their full name, and then the link is actually their username that it came up with. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and click on View Document just so you can see how this report looks for your clients. So when they sign in and look at their information, this is actually how the report's going to look. So it's an HTML report. So remember, we can click on any of these images here, and that's going to expand them for us. If you have video, you can play those directly from here. You can also go to your table of contents and then quickly jump to a section. You also have this handy table of contents over here that has all those same choices too. And something to think about, just if you ever get questions from your customers about how they can print or save this report or send it to somebody else, they do have all of those options over here in the right-hand corner. So they can access their other reports that they might have from other inspectors. They can email this to somebody. PDF, if they click on that, this will actually give them two choices where they can either view that PDF or they can save it to their computer. And then you'll also see there is that last option here to email that out to somebody. And then, the last one on here that I don't want to forget is actually very helpful. So they could actually just choose to view the summary just by itself and just print this out. So this is something that realtors really like to do as well. If you have heard of our CRL feature, that stands for Create Request List, that's something that is automatically going to be there for your customers if you're using HTML, if you have that feature turned on. So that is actually really helpful because that's going to take your report and just allow them to walk through all of those items and create a list of repairs from that as well. So that just kind of goes along with being able to print this summary here. Okay, so now that we know what that report looks like for them, let's go back a little bit and let's actually send them the emails. We want to go ahead and get everything sent out. So right underneath the property address, we see our link here to send the emails. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you'll notice that I have our realtor listed on here as well as the customer. Right now, they both have a check where it says send email, so they're already set up to receive something. But you'll notice that the inspection report is kind of showing up in this pink-red color right here. And that just means that we haven't actually given them permission to look at the report. So while they might receive an email, if they try to log in, they actually won't be able to see anything. So we just leave this up to you just to decide who you want to have viewing permission. So in this case, let's say I want them both to have viewing permission. And then I've also got an option here to give them forwarding permission, where then they could go in and send this to somebody else. Let's say in this case, I don't want to give forwarding permission to my realtor, but I do for the customer because I know they want to send it to a family member. So you can just pick and choose from that. You can go ahead and just click on where it says send emails. We already have these emails designed and ready to go for you, but just to show you what that looks like here, you'll see this is the one that the buyer or the seller is going to be receiving. This is the subject line here. This is a great part about having your logo in the system. That can show up in these emails as well. And this is just telling them that their report has been uploaded. It gives them the information that they'll need to log in and view their report. So these are merged fields as well. These will automatically fill in for you. So if you see those and they look kind of strange, don't worry about that. That'll just automatically fill in. It gives them the link that they'll need to sign in and all of the instructions right here. And then there's also a similar one for the realtor. It's going to be that same format with their username and password and their login link right there. So now we can go ahead and just send out the emails. And mine looks a little bit different right here because I have a lot of different time release messaging set up. If you have some questions about that, feel free to let us know. I can always pass you some information on that. But those are messages that you can just have that are automated that will go out after the report's been uploaded. So let's go back to our dashboard now, and it should look a little bit different. So if we come back here, we see that there are some changes that were made down here. So for the inspection report, we can now see that those emails have been sent to both the customer and the realtor, and we have given them viewing permission for both parties. So the customer and the realtor also has viewing permissions. So if you ever need to change any of that, if you have accidentally forgotten to give viewing permission, or you want to change something that you've done, you can come under here under viewing and then edit permissions. And you can always come in here and let's say, I actually do want the realtor to have permission to forward that. I can come in there and check this off and set the permissions. That way you don't really have to send them another email. It's just going to go ahead and update for them. So hopefully this webinar was helpful. So we've kind of walked through the very beginning of creating our first report, setting up our customers and realtors, selecting our template, and working through that template to answer all of the report questions. And then finally, we've ended here on the dashboard where we have uploaded the report and then sent everything out to our clients. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. If you do have any further questions or things that we can help with, we will stick around and be available to chat over the webinar for a few more minutes. If there's anything that we did not answer or you'd like some more information on, feel free to type that in or send us an email to support@homegauge.com. And like always, feel free to give us a call at our support line as well. Thank you so much.